Well, hello again, and welcome to the VK6CS Fun with Amateur Radio channel. I haven't been having much fun with amateur radio for quite some time, hence the lack of videos. So, as I've not been playing around with amateur radio, I haven't been doing anything that I thought might be worth filming. I'm still not going to have very much time for playing around with amateur radio, but I thought this may be of some interest. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just do a very quick video, and just to do a quick comparison between the what we might see on something like this, which is a budget. This is a budget antenna analyzer, the Mini1300. I do apologise for the glare, and a professional antenna analyzer like the Rohde & Schwarz ZVH4. Just to see what difference there is in the response it displays for a couple of antennas. So these are a couple of Moxon antennas I made. This one is for 70 centimetres, and there's my hand for scale there. The one at the other end is a 2 metre Moxon antenna, and you may have seen this on the channel before if you're a regular viewer. I made this a year or two ago now, this 2 metre Moxon antenna, and the performance of it was so good that I just never ever bothered. I've always had good reports, I've never ever bothered to put it on an antenna analyzer and see how it looks. All I did was use the chart on the internet, or a chart from the internet, for Moxon antennas, you know, distance length A, length B, length C for different bands, cut it and made it up. These are retic pipe fittings here. So anyway, the response as shown on the Mini1300, these are a budget antenna analyzer, I think about $300. I hope you can see that. I'm trying to get rid of the glare for you, but unfortunately this is Australia and it's summertime, so it's not easy to do. But I think you can see there that the antenna has a really nice big dip on about 140 megahertz there. See that? So it's 140 megahertz. And it's going right up here, and it's off the scale there. And that is 20 to 1. Okay, SWR of 20 to 1. Okay, and that's starting at around, what's that, 135 megahertz. See that across the bottom there? This is 130 megahertz here to 150 megahertz there. It's a 20 megahertz span. Now, it doesn't really matter, I suppose, that this is right up here. It's sort of going way beyond what this thing will calculate. So it's saying at 130 megs. 130 megs, the SWR is greater than 20 to 1. Now over here, this is the interesting bit, to the right hand side of the dip is the bit we're interested in, because you hear people say, oh yeah, these Moxon antennas have a really broad bandwidth. Now once you get across to sort of here, where are we, sort of 144-ish there to 148, which is right up there. Remember, this is ends at 150 megs. It is pretty flat right across the 2 metre band. And if we go across here, we can see that the SWR is, oh, okay, it's greater than 3 to 1. That is above the 3 to 1 line. It's just maybe on the 3 to 1 line there. So that's with the antenna connected to that port there. And to get down to 1 to 1, 1.1 to 1, you have to be using 140 megahertz. Okay. All right. Well, what I suspect is that these Moxon antennas are supposed to work like this. So that you've got a nice big dip off to the bottom end of the band, and then you've got this nice flat line right across the part of the spectrum you're interested in using. So if I moved this, if I moved this way, if I move this way, this line, this horizontal line here might drop a little bit, so it would be a little bit better than 3:1. I would do that by removing the retic fittings. So this is 10mm aluminium tube. I've just painted it so it doesn't stick out, so it's nice and unobtrusive. But just cut these retic fittings off at the top and the bottom, and get a pipe cutter. Take 10mm off here, 10mm off there. Same at the bottom, to make the elements a little bit shorter, to make the driven element and the reflector a little bit shorter. I'll probably have to do the same thing here, wouldn't I? Have to take 5mm out of that and 5mm out of that to square it up, or 10mm out of one side actually would do it, wouldn't it? So okay, well, let's just get back to the antenna analyzers. So that's the Mini1300, and that's the response shown on the Mini1300. So what I'll do is I'll just I'll stop the video here, and we'll go to the next clip, which is the same antenna on the Rohde & Schwarz ZVH4. Okay, now here is the same antenna on the Rohde & Schwarz. Can't get rid of this bloody glare. There we go. There's the same antenna, as you can see. 139.5 megahertz is the centre of the dip there. That's where I've got the marker there, so you can look at that a little more clearly. I don't know whether the other one, I think the other one probably does have a marker. I'll have to try and find it. But there we are, 139.4 megs. Got a nice big dip there, which corresponds to a return loss of minus 25 dB. So because this instrument doesn't actually do SWR, I'll just use this handy table here to convert that. Oh god, the ground's a bit wet. As you can see, the production quality hasn't improved. Right, so where were we? Right, so it's minus 25 dB. There we go, return loss. So if we go to this handy little chart I've got here, which is a return loss to VSWR conversion table, we can see that 25 dB there. So an SWR of 1.12. We go right over here, it means that the actual through power is 99.68%. And we see that that line that's going off to the right hand side, the sweep width on this is the same, by the way. It's 130 megs this side and it's 150 megs that side. So we should see basically what we saw on the Mini1300, which is someone set to turn the screen off fairly rapidly to save the batteries. Tap the screen and I'll come back. Yeah, there we go. So there's the response on the Mini1300. It's the same leads, the same bullet connector, same antenna, and this is the response on the Rohde & Schwarz. Looks very different, doesn't it? I mean, if you look to the right of the nice dip there, that sort of tails off on the right hand side. The SWR is actually improving as it gets to 150 megahertz, and on this one it's actually getting worse. The actual response curve is a different shape. I've moved the antenna, everything is exactly the same. And what do we have in the way of return loss there? So -5, that's probably, call it -4. So what is -4? So we've got a return loss of, there we go, -4. So the VSWR is 4.42 to 1. That is 4.42, equates to 4.42 to 1. On the Mini1300 it goes right up to 20 to 1. And it goes up to 20 to 1 at 135 megs. So 135 megs, there's a repeater in the background. Make it there, 135 megs, just move the marker along there, see that? 135 megs, it's -5. -5 equates to 3.57 to 1 SWR. And we're getting 68.38% through power. But the interesting thing is, why do these responses look so different? The sweep width is the same, 20 megs, from 130 megs to 150 megs. Exactly the same on here. And although it's sort of, the dip is in about the same place, around 140 megs, 139.9 I think it was, the actual shape of the response to the left and right of the dip are very different. Now perhaps, now I'm not overly familiar with this thing, to be perfectly honest. I find it quite clunky to use, this Mini1300. So if any of you out there think I'm doing something wrong, please say so in the comments below, and I'll try whatever you suggest, as long as it's anatomically possible, of course. It doesn't lead to too much discomfort, and I'll see if you're right. Yeah, sorry about this bloody glare. There we go. But that, you know, looking at that response going right the way up there and across, and then along there and down, I'm looking at this response, which sort of gently goes up there. And remember, that's only three or 4 to 1. 3 to 1, 4 to 1, something like that. And this is saying 20 to 1 SWR. And this end here is dipping down. This end here is going up. So it's getting worse. This one's showing it getting worse, and this one is showing it getting better. Okay, well that's just a very quick look at a 2 meter Moxon on a couple of antenna analyzers. One is a professional Roden Swartz piece of kit, and this is the cheap and cheerful Mini1300 that belongs to the radio club, local radio club I'm a member of. Alright, well let's just have a look at a 70 centimetre antenna and see what that shows us. Yeah, there's just before we move on to the clip with the 70 cm antenna. Yeah, sorry about the terrible editing, but I really don't have a huge amount of time to do this. And I've borrowed that from the club, and I borrowed this from work, so I could just have a quick look at the difference between the two, see how accurate this gizmo is. Now, what I didn't do was I haven't touched it. I've just stopped the camera and started it again. But to the right of this dip here, now this is the this is effectively the 2 meter band here, going up to 150 megs. So you get the nice flat response across the 2 meter band. And if we look at that, if we follow that across, that's a little bit better than -15. Okay, so we call that -16. So if we go to the chart, go to our handy chart, -16 is 1.38 to 1, and 97.49% through power. 1.38 to 1. Now remember this one here, this is showing, if we follow this line across, this line here, 3 to 1. It's worse than 3 to 1. It's not even making the 3 to 1 line. See that? It's just getting to 3 to 1 at 150 megs there. So that's quite a big difference. Quite a big difference in what we're seeing on this one, isn't it? This one's saying it's 1.38 to 1. This one's saying it's worse than 3 to 1. And it's getting better towards 150 megs. This one's showing it getting worse, up to 150 megs. Just out of curiosity, let's have a look at the 2 metre band, say 140, 144. Okay, there's 144, the marker there. See the blue cross there? That's 144. And we'll move that across to 148, the whole 2 metre band here in Australia. There we go. So 148 is there. So that horizontal bit, so this horizontal bit here, this horizontal bit here is the 2 metre band. And that's better than -15. It's about 1.38 to 1. So yeah, they're telling a very different story, aren't they, these two units, which is quite interesting. Okay, well, as the local repeater has burst into life, as opposed to bursting into flames, which I suppose we should all be grateful for, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to pause this here, and then we'll look at the two units, looking at the 70 centimetre Moxon. Okay, now I've connected it to the 70 centimetre Moxon antenna, which is this one here. Again, there's the hand for scale. I'm using the same lead that I'll be using on the other device, but looking at the response of this, it looks bloody terrible. I mean, the centre frequency is. Let me just move this cursor along here. Yeah, I really don't like this little unit very much, to be honest. So it's saying there I'm trying to see where you read the oh, here we go. So 428 megs is where that nice big dip is. 428 megs. See that down the bottom there? 428 250. So that vertical broken white line is the marker. It then goes up to 20, so it's 1.1 to 1 at 428 megs. And then it goes up rapidly. So 430, what would that be? 432, 34, so 433 megs-ish. It goes right up to this SWR of 20 to 1. It stays there right the way across until about 440 megahertz, and then it starts dropping back down again. So I made the centre frequency 434.8, which is the input frequency to the local 70 cent repeater. So 434.8. Oh, so I'm doing this on the floor. It's pretty much all prepared, but this is amateur radio after all. There's my little indicator. So there we go. 434.8 is this vertical line here. And it's saying SWR is 20 to 1 at the input to the local UHF repeater. Goes right off the scale up here, returns over here at, what would that be, 441 megs. Okay, so let's just stop that and take a look at the same antenna with the same leads on the Roden Schwartz, which is set up to exactly the same thing. With the centre frequency is 434.8 megs, and it's a 20 meg scan, so it's plus or minus 10 megs. So we'll just have a look at that. Stand by, I'll just connect it up. And again, completely different response. Got exactly the same sweep width, exactly the same centre frequency, but look at the difference in look at the difference in response. Either this thing is a bag of crap, or I'm doing something wrong. Maybe if you've got one of these units, you could leave a comment below. Tell me what you think I'm doing wrong. Just putting in single frequency sweep does a scan, you know, the frequency, start-stop frequencies, scan it. I did the in and out calibration thing. So I've done the calibration on this as well. It's a little bit easier to do on this thing. But as you can see, there we go. You can see the little blue, the vertical blue line with a little marker across it. That's the marker. That's 434.8 megs, the input frequency of the local UHF repeater, and it's between neg 10 and neg 15. So I'd say that's probably neg 12.5, so 12.5 dB return loss. So if we go to our chart, return loss in dB, go to 12 and we look across, it's 1.67 to 1 is the SWR. And I have actually used this Moxon antenna on 70 SEMS and the radio doesn't complain, so I would say that the Rode and Schwartz is telling us the truth here. 93.69% through power. Whereas this thing here, if we actually move the thing across to 434.8 megs, let's just move it across. Oops. Very finicky thing. So so it's now 434.8 megs is the vertical white line here, and we can see the SWR is shown on this particular gadget as being over 20 to 1. And the response, if you look at the response, bear in mind, you know, from this side of the screen to this side of the screen is exactly the same sweep width as from this side of the screen to this side of the screen. And look at the response on the Rode and Schwartz. And look at the response on this Mini1300. They're not even close, are they? Not even close. So, well, all right. Well, just for a bit of fun, I think I won't bother with the Mini1300 for now. I'll consult someone that's a bit more familiar with it. I'll show them this video. In fact, I might upload this video onto the channel, and anyone out there with any suggestions could maybe post them below, and I'll have another play with it and do another video if I'm doing something wrong. But just out of curiosity, I'm just going to let's change the span. Let's make it 100 megs. Okay, so I've just changed the span now, so it's now 100 megs. And the marker is still on the input frequency of the repeater. So now it's plus or minus 50 megs. So from there to there is 50 megs, and from there to there is 50 megs. We've got a nice big dip there. Look at that. I wonder what that is. Let's have a look. It's just too easy when you've got the right gear, isn't it? So that's 456.8 megs. It really likes that, doesn't it? Look at it. Really likes it. So it looks like the 2 meter antenna, Moxon, the elements are slightly too long, and the 70 SEM Moxon, the elements are slightly too short. So I'll probably remake that 70 centimetre. So we'll just follow that along, follow that curve along there. That's 450 megs, 440, what else it was? 438, wasn't it? 438, 434, sorry, 0.8. That's it. So that's the input to the that's the input to the 70 SEM repeater there. So really, what I need to do, I need to move that hump from there over to here, and hopefully that'll be a little bit more linear on that side. Actually, let's make the span a bit bigger. Let's make the span 200 megs. Yeah. Well, I mean that hump, that hump there. Where are we? That hump there, from there, that's 480.3, across to there, which is 463.4. So that little hump there, if I widened it out, that would look a little bit better. But that is the worst part of that hump. And that's about what, neg 8, that's about 2.32 to 1. So really, I suppose it's best left alone, come to think of it. So if I put it back to span 20 megs, so we've got that pretty flat sort of response there, right across. And at the input frequency to the repeater, I could dial this in, of course. 434.8. There we go. So yeah, it's about 12 dB of return loss there. So that's about 1.67. So I'll leave it alone. I'll leave that antenna alone. That little Moxon, 77 Moxon antenna. But you know, I thought it would be interesting just to do a comparison between the two analyzers, the cheap and cheerful analyzer, and a professional analyzer, and just see what the see if it showed any difference in response. You know, if it showed different levels of return loss or SWR, and it does by a very large margin. In fact, the margin is so large that it makes me suspect that I'm doing something wrong. Anyway, as always, if you found this interesting, thanks for watching, and if you have any anatomically possible suggestions, just leave them below. I'll catch you next time.